Sorry, technical difficulty. It's coming. Should we keep going? No, not there. It's not there, just go.
All right. While we're waiting for the computer to boot up, my dad, Michelle's grandfather, always said things happen for us and not to us. He used to say this all the time. And we have come to believe that this is our mantra. Every situation in life happens for us and not to us, and has infinite potential in place to teach us. The journey that takes place as we live our life is amazing. We ask you, how do you settle into your personal beliefs about healthcare? We ask you, hey.
Sorry.
We also ask you to question yourself. Does your belief system serve you? If it does, great. And if not, let's look into it a little bit. We go through life carrying a backpack of belief systems that were given to us when we were little children. This backpack of energy begins to color our world as we know it. What belief systems do we want to load our pack with? I need to click. Within every cell of our body, there's an innate intelligence. Every word we think, every thought we think, every word we say affects the physical body in a tremendous capacity. It's as though you pick up the phone and dial up to every single cell in your body. That's times trillions, every minute of every day, even in our sleep. We recognize that all cells in the body have this innate potential to heal, and it's critical to inspire our patients to send the message that they want for their desired outcome in alignment with who they really are.
Here's an excerpt from the Dale of Health. Freedom and subtlety, the superior. Condensed and rigid, the inferior. Mind is more subtle and free than the body, thus it dominates and reigns supreme. As my mind weakens or strengthens, so my body must follow. There is no imaginary illness or symptom. I am ill if I think I am ill. And that which prevents utter chaos within is the hope and belief I can truly survive, even in my darkest moments. So do you think that there might be a connection between the mind and the body? Doctor is Latin for teacher. So when a patient comes in and they're presenting with some sort of health challenge, is it really disease, or in our language, dis-ease, or is it really an opportunity? Well, it depends how we look at it, right? This is actually a picture of one of those Tibetan singing bowls. I actually carried that back from Nepal. And what we saw when we were there is that when we would put water inside the bowl, and we would actually play the bowl, which creates a vibration, what happened is that the water molecules started to pop, 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 pop. And you can kind of see it there a little bit. And so it was really a strong message of, instead of trying to dictate change, what if we just simply allow an energy shift to happen? And how we apply that in clinical practice is, instead of going into a patient's body and saying, you know, the blood pressure is too high, let's bring it down. Instead of doing that, what if we just simply create a subtle shift, and then their body knows what to do, and their body will bring the blood pressure down? It's okay. Sorry. Can you hear me on this one? It's better, right? Same, okay. So if we look at this picture here, it's a picture of a tree, right? And if you think about how trees are in nature, and you look at the leaves, if you see leaves that are kind of dry and brown, and they look kind of ill, okay, there's a couple approaches we can take. We can actually go and take some scissors and start to cut off those dead leaves, right? And will the tree look better? Yeah, of course, right? But how long-lasting is that effect? All right, so you think that's going to be long-lasting or temporary? Temporary, right? Because in reality, the leaves are just a manifestation of the roots. And so if we start to figure out why is the tree ill, why are the leaves manifesting this way, and we start to address what is going on at that root level for that tree at that time, and we actually start to remedy whatever that is, okay, now we start to see, if we give it a little bit of time, what happens to those leaves. They become healthier, right? So now if we think about it again in clinical practice, and a patient comes in, let's just say with diabetes, for example, okay, we have to figure it out. Is it because of family history, okay? Is it because of genetics? Is it because their diet? Is it because of trauma? Is it because of toxicity? Okay, what is it? And we have to figure out for that individual at that specific time, what is it that's causing it, and then do something to remedy the specific cause for that person. So right now, there's a lot of confusion around food. Okay, it's interesting because it's something that's so natural, and it's something that should come kind of as common sense, but it's really not. And there's 1,000,001 diets out there, right? So how do we even choose what's healthy? We have to think about it, and we have to, if you look at the picture on the left, if you go into a grocery store and you need a label to see what you're eating, does that make sense? Or does it make more sense that the food speaks for itself? Okay, if you look at the picture on the right, that's at a local farmer's market. And if you think about food, if you want to keep it relatively simple in terms of choosing healthy foods, you really just have to focus on the quality. And if you think about the quality of food, and we look at what's in the grocery store, most of the time that food has traveled miles and miles and miles to get there. And so by the time you actually eat it, how much nutrition is really in the food anymore? Okay? And then if we think about the word vitality, how much life is still in that food? Okay? And how much does that resonate with what our cells actually take in? And so would you rather food that's sitting on the supermarket shelves for who knows how long and that it's been trekking over miles to get there? Or would you rather local food that's full of nourishment, vitality, and life energy? So this is actually when I was trekking in Nepal. That was probably the 5th day in the mountains. And we came across these 2 little boys. And one of them, he had a cut on his finger. Okay, relatively innocent. But that's what it was. And it made me think because, you know, I didn't have much with me. I had my backpacking gear, but I had Band-Aids. And I said, all right, let me go see what I can do for him. So I go over, and I just simply put the Band-Aid on him. And through really just giving him that level of caring, compassion, these kids live in these small villages in the mountains. It's not often that they get to interact with, you know, us. And so for him to see that we took the time to stop and just kind of take care of him in the limited capacity that we did, it really did mean a lot to them. And they were so excited when we, you know, stopped, and then when we left, they were so grateful. And what I knew is that the Band-Aid was just serving as protection, but I also knew that his body already knew how to heal that cut. And whether it was just a cut or whether there was something a little bit more serious going on, I knew that his body would be able to handle it. And so I kind of left him with that thought in mind. In Nepal, there's this incredibly special place called the Buddhist Stupa, and we actually visited there a couple of times during our trip. And the first time we went, we just kind of went as a tourist. We were taking lots of pictures and just enjoying the experience of being there. But there was a noticeable difference in the energy in that area, and it was contagious. And so we left. That was the first trip there. Then we left. Then we ended up deciding to come back. And on that second visit there, it was actually the day that, unfortunately, we lost some people on Everest. And they were doing a parade in honor of them, the Sherpas. And we noticed that they were walking with incense, and they were really just trying to honor these people. And so my friend who I was there with, she and I decided that this time around at the Buddhist Stupa, there is an opportunity to walk around it in a clockwise direction and kind of turn the prayer wheels as you go. And a lot of the monks would actually walk around with the mala beads, the prayer beads, and say their prayers or repeat a mantra, whatever it is that they were doing in prayer as they were walking around. And so we decided, okay, this time let's do it, and let's do it with the honor and with the thought of the Sherpas who unfortunately lost their lives on Everest that day. So we did that. And as we were walking around this huge, huge, huge stupa, okay, turning the wheels, we came across this monk. And she offered to give a blessing. And so we did it. And all I can say is that I've never felt such powerful love, compassion, intent, and focus as I did in that experience. And she was saying something in some other language that I don't even know what the language was, okay, but I knew exactly what she was saying.
In the year 2000, I had the incredible opportunity to go to Guangzhou, China, to study alongside the medical team at Guangzhou Teaching Hospital in Guangzhou. I was always so fascinated with where my medicine that I love so much came from. So I wanted to entrench myself with the culture, the people, the food, the medical system, the hospitals, and I had no idea what to expect when I got there. I went on blind faith, really. On the right side is a picture of a street leading up to Guangzhou Hospital. And as you can see, there's a lot going on there. People are buying food and doing their laundry and trying to go to work, and it's fascinating how millions and millions of people can find a way to coexist with respect. On the right is the lobby in the hospital. And it's fascinating because there are two pharmacies side by side. To the right was where patients went to pick up their medical prescriptions, and to the left was where people went to pick up their herbal prescriptions. I spent most of my time in the pediatric department, and as you can see, we were overrun with patients. We saw about 80 patients a day, and they ended up lining them down the whole corridor. And all the little babies, all the little children would sit in the parents' laps, and they, for the most part, were crying and unhappy because they didn't want to be there. And some of the doctors were actually telling us that across the street from the hospital, recently they had opened up a McDonald's. And so if the babies cried, guess what? They took them to McDonald's. And now they were seeing diseases in children that they had never seen before. So as I went with my team down the whole line of these little patients who were struggling, we would set the needles on them, and I would always ask mom, dad, brother, or sister, whoever was with these little children, to please hold them, hold their foot, hug them. And guess what happened? As you can see on the right, that little baby went right to sleep. There is so much power in touch. We let off and we release oxytocin and all kinds of hormones, and we feel loved and we feel secure, because whether we're a little baby like that or a big person, when we're in a trauma state or when we're in a place where we're unfamiliar with, we're scared. And so we need the touch. This little boy on the left, he actually came to the hospital because he lost his hearing due to an inoculation he had received. His parents sold everything. They sold their business, they sold their house, they left every person they knew and loved, and they moved to Guangzhou because they had to bring him to the hospital every single day. And I was assigned the case. And so every day that I was there, and I'll digress and say, they spoke not a word of English, and my Chinese was not very good at all. So we didn't communicate through words, but there was a very powerful connection and communication through our eyes and our hearts. And my intention was that no matter what, while I was there and on this case, I was going to help this little boy and help to make his family feel better no matter what. And each day, at the end of the day, his parents would come over to me and hug me. And they would just smile. And every single time I got so teary. And it's just, our hearts were connecting and they were so grateful. And I was grateful to have the opportunity and to meet them. And then this little boy on the right, he's 12 years old. And at the time, I had a 12-year-old little boy in the States. My 12-year-old little boy was in need of nothing, went to camp, had a big support system through his family, compared to this little boy who was dropped off at the hospital every day and was by himself. And he was so scared, and he was so sad and lonely. So every day we would treat him, and there were so many people, it was hard to stay with each patient. Although on this particular day, I asked my supervising doctor, please let me stay with him. And so I set him up, I set the needles, and you can see him glancing over at me because I sat down right next to him. And for the first time, he smiled. And he was so appreciative that I would just be with him.
So we've come a long way together. Other than Denise being my mom, when she was studying in China, I was still in high school. And, now we run this amazing integrative center together. So in between all of that time is when I traveled to Nepal and Peru, and we've both been to South Africa at different times. And basically, when I was studying in Nepal, I studied at this monastery called the Nato Monastery. And what I learned about yoga is that it goes so much beyond the physical exercises. And here in the States, a lot of times we go to yoga class and it's just movement, right? Unless you find a talented instructor where hopefully they pull in a little bit more of the spiritual aspect. But for me, that was that learning opportunity there. And one of the lessons I learned is that when I was in Warrior II pose, one of the lessons is that you're kind of joining past, present, and future all together. And as I was standing there in Warrior II for 5 whole minutes, okay, a little bit different yoga than vinyasa, and my muscles were trembling, okay, from holding it for so long, what I learned is that actually through that challenge of holding the pose, okay, was an opportunity to learn something about myself. And it was an opportunity to learn what happens when you're going through life and you actually have challenge. Okay, so it's valuable lessons that we can learn on the mat that we can take into life. So we believe that we were born into our family for a reason. My grandfather kind of started this journey for us. We were born into our family as it was, and we're kind of carrying on his work. And we really feel that we found the professional path that we were meant to be in order to allow for optimal expression of our life purpose. So we just challenge all of you to just think about whatever it is that you're waking up and doing every day. Is that fulfilling what you're meant to be here for? And lastly, the ribbon that kind of runs through all of us is love, compassion, and a higher consciousness. And we just feel honored to be here and share with all of you in this experience today, because same as some of the other speakers said, it's almost like we feel like we came home. And we're amongst company here that really understands us. So thank you.
Thank you.